Okay, welcome to our call for the weekend, of March 28, 29. And welcome. I don't know how, Richard, you're doing up there with your weather, but we've been having some pretty good spring days here. And last week we were having 80 degrees and you were snowing. What's going on, Richard? How are you? What shape are you in tonight? What are you feeling and what's your intention for the call?
Uh, I'm in spring shape. Winter has decided to stay away for a little bit, but because of the pattern in the last month or 2 months, I'm not optimistic that spring is going to stay with us well into the season. So, um, yeah, I'm looking forward to the beginning of the end, I guess, of our reading and what we will think about in terms of going into a next reading. So, Brad, what kind of shape are you in today, and what's your expectation for today's dialogue?
Thank you, Richard. I don't know if it's a shape. I'm scattered. I have a lot of difficulties to focus and concentrate on anything, be present. So it's a little bit jumping from one thing to the next with a lot of anxiety. So that's the shape I am in, and that's how I feel. And my expectation is let's learn a little bit something and see if these 2 hours of Bucky will recenter me a little bit. Joe, how are you feeling today, and what shape are you in, and what is your desired takeaway?
What shape am I in today? Um, I guess I'm in a little bit of circle, a circular shape. And so, I am because I'm almost a circle. Almost coming to a the completion of everything that a very, very long move. I know that I've been saying it for a lot of weeks, but it's been a very, very long move. So so it's that's so it's almost complete. um and it's there's some emotion that goes along with that. As far as my expectation is, yeah, coming up to the end of the book, and I'm hoping to have a moment to look back and to think about you know what are my main takeaways from this book at some point, once things get a little bit more settled. So to kind of start to kind of as we come to the end, a little bit of reflection, a little bit of reflection. So, Lee, how are you feeling, and what is going on? I hope everything's okay. Uh, how are you feeling? What shape are you, and what would you like to take away from today?
I um, have been listening to four wonderful musicians today, basically under a white flowering tree, huge tree flowering, and I have allergies so bad. I can't see through my eyes. My eyes hurt, but I was determined to be with all of you for this ending, possibly, unless we get into some debates. And I learn a lot from debates. Thank you. And how are you feeling? What was the term I was supposed to use?
What
Yeah.
shape are you
How
in?
shape how shape
Oh, what-
what shape are you in? And what do you want out of this week?
Thank you, Lee. Yes, I'm sorry to see that you have to put something in your eye to.
It's
Whoa!
called a cold washcloth.
Wow. Okay. Wow. That's. Okay. Anyway, yes, I hope you can see us then. Yeah, and what's going on today. Yeah, I'm actually in the shape of the geodesic dome. The one that they're using to automate and pack it closely to send out to be the next space station in 2031. That also I got from TED Talk, right? So in Vancouver, I was amazed. So that's the thing I'm in. So I'm so sorry I was a couple of minutes late. I was sitting in front of the tablet, my device, but I was carried away working on a talk I'm giving tomorrow. It's a parenting hack, yeah, dealing with gaming and kids going just one more time. So the two things I know nobody actually talks about. We're reframing addiction. Number one is we're reframing addiction. Number two is the question is to the parents is to stop choosing your past for your kids' future. And the other one is, are we doing enough to give our kids the tools to rise above the ordinary? Because until we do that, they will only want academic results. So there's a lot of reframing have to do with the parents. So there's a talk tomorrow, a small group, but then later on, components of these we're going to turn into videos to go out there. So the growth of where I am with education, everything, thank you. Thank you to our Bucky calls. Thank you so much because you gave me so much context. And I think what we are doing is beyond even the context, right? Because the context is too loosely used, and I find it's underrated. And so we're looking at because we're looking at the universal principle context, and it's beyond because it's like at the cosmos level, right? And because of that, as the mind expands, yeah, although our brain doesn't, but our mind expands. I got so much that and now it gave me so much clarity as to what to do. So that's what I expect more of. I don't know. It's already so much, right? And I cannot just imagine what else more I'm going to get. And I'm looking forward to it. Thank you. And Steve you're the last one, right, Steve? Back to you. Steve, what shape are you in and what do you expect of today?
Wonderful. I feel like one of those things that Richard has where all of the sticks are spread out to the wide angles and those little edges are stretched to the pulp. They're stretched thin. I feel stretched thin. Didn't get much sleep last night, had fun jamming with some buddies, and did some original songs and some blues, and it was cool. And my daughter had her 49th birthday. My middle daughter, my next to middle daughter, had her 49th birthday today, and no, I thought it was the 52nd birthday, but I made up a whole birthday card for 52 years old, and she was 49. I had her year wrong in my contact database, for crying out loud. I need an executive secretary to watch what I'm doing. So I celebrated 52 years with her, and she was grateful she was only 49. I don't know. But I had a great dinner, and we're getting close to the end of these books, and I feel like I need to read them both again, and somebody needs to explain them to me real slow. I'm getting some good stuff out of them, but it's it's one day at a time. So that's it. And Manu has sent me a text message saying that, he sent us all a WhatsApp saying that he probably wouldn't make it to today's call. So I think that's pretty much it for our Saturday group. We left off on page 259, on page 260. But the wording we're going to start off with here says, we finished with the little game ball here, and it says, the second discovery, which should be experienced to be fully appreciated. I thought, well, what the hell was the first discovery? So I went back over the last couple of pages here to look at what it was. And the bottom line is, here's our chapter 15, From Geodesic to Tensegrity, the invisible made visible. A geodesic is the most economical relationship between any two events. Okay. And the first discovery that we're supposed to discover is that when you take when you create a sphere over this cube octahedron, are we dealing with an icosahedron? When you create the first sphere, it can go anywhere it wants to, and so what you have to do is you have to bring in a second wire of the same diameter, but the problem is that can go anywhere that it wants to, and the effort fails because two circles are free to spin around their common axis. However, what you need to do now is not until we have three non-commonly polarized great circle bands providing ornithriangulation. Ornithriangulation, do we have the great circles acting structurally to self-interstabilize. So what we're supposed to get is there are three great circles that do that. And of course, he talks about it. This discovery may seem trivial at first, but we have no indication from the design that the stability of a three-way grid is widely understood in our culture. And then, of course, he cites the fact that strong baskets are made with this same kind of structure. And he cited the Southeast Asian children playing the reed sphere that we discussed and shared her experience of so vividly last week. So now, having understood these three great circles around this icosahedron, making this stabilized structure, we can now move on to the second discovery. Anybody want to comment on what I've said so far? Did I summarize it okay? I'm not sure I understood all the words that came out of my mouth, but
more than three.
It does, but it's only three.
Steve,
Yeah.
sorry, Lee, you go ahead first.
Say what?
Lee started saying something.
Yeah, she said it looks like more than three bands up here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Steve, thank you so much, because I never looked back to the first discovery, And so the minute you did that, whoom, the whole thing, you just it led from that to that and to the end of the chapter perfectly. Thank you so much. That's I'm complete.
Well, good. I'm glad that made some sense to you. Fred has put a couple of cool points in here, pointing out that we're not really all that close to getting this book done. We probably would be done in July based on the amount of reading we have to do. I think that's very practical and appreciate that very much. And then the word that I screwed up over here, or that he points out is a misspelling. This is not ornitriangulation. This should be omnitriangulation, which is, a reasonable mistake. Thank you, Fred, for clarifying that.
Yeah.
Makes the introduction even more introductory. Any other comments or questions before we begin reading?
I'm still thinking about how to get 3 years back out of my life. Gotta be honest.
Yeah.
I never got that as a gift.
Yeah. Well, you have to have a screwed up dad like me.
I'll tell you what, I'll take it.
My gosh, I did a bunch of AI research on 52 and did up this whole dramatic birthday card about how cool 52 was. And she just chuckled. We'll see if I have it, if I'm able to stay organized for the coming year. Okay, I will go ahead and start out reading a couple paragraphs, then we'll trade around if that's okay with everybody, unless everybody feels inspired and doesn't want me to read. Here we go. The second discovery now, okay? The second discovery, which should be what?
Lee should mute because the sound is really echoey.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lee.
Can you mute me, please?
Yes, I can.
I can't.
You're muted. The second discovery, which should be experienced to be fully appreciated, will nonetheless not come as a surprise at this point. Everything is a surprise to me at this point, folks. Experimenting with wire models, Fuller found that the more great circles, the stronger the sphere. That much is self-evident, but the degree to which their strength increased far exceeded his expectations. This is not that the kind of linear relationship exhibited by ordinary structures. Rather, the increasing rigidity of his great circle models from a minimum of 3 to the icosahedral 31 could only be called synergetic. We skip directly to the strongest model provided by the last chapter's limit case, 31 great circles. Triangulated geodesic arcs produce an extremely sturdy, lightweight enclosure out of thin wire. Let's look closely at the pattern. Our study is made considerably less complicated by isolating the LCD as described in the preceding chapter. LCD stands for lowest common
Denominator.
Denominator.
Is it really a denominator? Okay. Accordingly, we study only one of the 120 triangles framed by the icosahedron's 15 great circles and observe that it is asymmetrically subdivided by the 6 and the 12 great circle patterns in figure 15.2, which is yonder. Notice the variations in the arc length and the surface angle made more obvious by viewing of this small region out of context. This looks like a mite discussion to me almost. The overall three-way grid incorporates longer and shorter arcs, thereby subdividing the sphere's surface into triangles of very different shape and size. 31 great circle subdivision of the icosahedron LCD. The LCD of the icosahedron is asymmetrically subdivided by the 31 great circle pattern. See, to me, I don't know, these guys over here are mites because everything else here has a right angle to it. That's what I remember about mites. Have I completely forgotten everything? This guy here is a right triangle. This guy here is a right triangle. That guy there is a right triangle. But this guy here is whatever you call a triangle who's...
Nearly. That's the wiggle room in the universe that Manu exists, we keep.
Yeah, Manu would be having fun with this. The load distribution and resulting strength of these wire models is a function of symmetry. The longer the arc, the more vulnerable it is to stress. A question of balance, number of lengths. This question was demonstrated in the Tensegrity bicycle wheel experiment mentioned in chapter 7, vector equilibrium. In tests to determine the minimum number of tension Dacron string spokes required to stabilize its hub, the wheel's eventual structural failure originated with buckling of its rim. Long arc spans, which were a consequence of the low number of radial spokes, were often too thin to withstand the compression force created by loading the hub and transmitted to the rim through the tension spokes. The usual arrangement, which consists of a fairly large number of spokes, 36 or more, therefore turns out to be advantageous, despite the fact that there are many more spokes than necessary to restrain the hub. This large number does serve to subdivide the otherwise vulnerable arc segments of the compression element rim. See also Edmondson, the minimal tensegrity wheel. I don't know where we would see that. That's page 261. Comments or questions so far? Okay, good. Anybody want to start reading for a time?
Carry on.
Please.
No, you carry on.
I mean, I can give it a go.
Oh.
I'm sorry, I was saying for a moment there. I was on mute. I had no idea. Sure. It is clear that the most advantageous system would have all arcs as close to the same length as possible. But how can we improve upon the symmetry of the 31 circle pattern? A second problem with the arrangement is that as a limit case, it does not present a logical course for further subdivision. To build progressively larger models with sufficient strength, we must find a way to generate more and more great circle segments, or higher frequency in synergetics terminology. Both problems are solved by Fuller's next step. To explore other methods of developing large multifaceted enclosures, we go back to the system that already has the greatest number of equivalent regular faces, the icosahedron. A three-way grid of evenly spaced, imagine a triangular checkerboard, divides the icosahedron's equilateral triangles into as many as smaller triangles as desired. Figure 15-3. And you can kind of see it there.
It's called a 4B, 4-frequency triangle superimposed on an icosahedron.
Wow. You can really see it. 1, 2, 3, 4 right there.
4 rows of triangles in each big triangle. Is that what you're seeing?
Well, wait a minute. 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
And remember, we've had this big discussion. This icosahedron is every vertex has 5 triangles at it. So there's a pentagon at every, overlapping pentagons at every vertex. So I'm trying to make something out of it. I hope I haven't misled anybody. Any other comments or questions?
The subdivision is you can subdivide as micro as you want with those equilateral triangles.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I mean, I don't know. I've had a little bit of I have a little bit of a bias creeping, and I always have, an as below, so above, as below kind of approach to looking at these things right now. And that's because I'm looking at other things, and I'm projecting a little bit.
Cool.
It's okay. What in what context do you see as above, so below?
Well, you can keep going to a micro level, but it still connects to the macrocosm, and there's a continuous unfolding.
Okay, thank you.
I tried something because the basic rule is that you can divide at the midpoints and keep multiplying. So I took one of these triangles, and I did a midpoint to midpoint division. And then I did it again, which I think might be the idea of this 2-frequency. And I ended up with the number of triangles that you see in each face. Took me 2 iterations of multiplying by dividing.
Cool. Any comments or questions about that? What I'm also noticing, and maybe it's obvious to everybody, but with this, with these divisions on each of the triangles, there's a bunch of hexagons being formed. And the pentagons are only created at the vertices that create that fold that Richard talked about when the guys were we ended up creating a soccer ball kind of a thing. They ended up having to get rid of hexagons and put in a number of pentagons. And I'm just noticing there's a bunch of hexagons here, and then right in the corners, there are pentagons. So I just thought I would say that. I don't know if that means anything.
Okay. And what's interesting is that leave the image, please. The pentagons are created from a hexagon out of which you remove one of those triangles.
Yeah.
This creates a positive curvature,
Mm.
and this creates what's called spherical geometry with positive curvatures. Now, if you did the inverse, instead of removing a triangle, you would add a triangle, then you would create negative curvature.
Yeah. Convex,
And
concave.
that would be creating hyperbolic geometry.
Uh-huh.
And the jury is still out there regarding the expansion of universe. Universe expands, but we don't know if the curvature is positive or negative. If it is positive, at some moment it will stop expanding and we will recontract. Whereas if the geometry of universe is negative curvature, like hyperbolic, then universe will expand, will keep expanding without ever stopping. We don't know that yet. Plus, we don't know how homogeneous curvature of universe would be.
Cool. All righty. We ready for more reading, Joe?
Sure. However, the subdivision does not yet lead to an effective design strategy for if neighboring triangles of a structural system lie in the same plane, the enclosure will deflect in and out like a trampoline in reaction to an applied load, unless vertices are reinforced using rigid joints, in which case the system is functionally equivalent to the original icosahedron. The advantages of triangulation are lost. It is thus clear that a convex polyhedral enclosure with more than 20 triangles cannot consist exclusively of equilateral faces. Adjacent triangles must differ slightly in shape and size to allow angles around each 6 valient vertex to add up less than 360 degrees as necessary for continuous convexity. Fortunately, the unavoidable variation among chord lengths can be far less than that of the 31 great circle pattern. To understand how these irregular triangles are generated, we back up and review the problem as a whole. Lee. Sorry, Steve. I didn't mean that.
Not understanding.
You're muted.
Can you go up, Steve?
Up to where? I need to mute for you. Go ahead.
The design.
And now you're all muted.
I got it. You had said, Joe, that it was, gosh,
As below, so above.
that it was a trampoline? How
no,
can you make a trampoline out of that? Didn't you read trampoline?
Yes, but I was
Yeah.
I'm trying to see as to how a trampoline would be made out of that.
No, it's not a trampoline being made out of it. It's just an analogy that you would push in and it would bounce back.
Oh, I see.
Did you guys? Okay. Have you guys seen the movie Hail Mary?
Not yet.
Hail Mary is a new movie with Ryan
Gosling.
Gosling. I get the two Ryans mixed up. Ryan Gosling. And he meets an alien, and the alien builds a spacesuit that looks like a geodesic dome. The angles are all weird ass. It is not purely equilateral triangles and pentagons, but it's a geodesic dome that's kind of like stuck together in a way that works. And there's this, and it's made out of shiny silicon, and the alien gets in it and rolls around in the human spaceship, and he rolls around inside of a geodesic like this, which is kind of interesting. I don't know. Wait till you see the movie. It is kind of fun. And in fact, what he does is the alien actually takes one of these geometric shapes and makes it expand. So you can see through it, but he can poke out and he makes it soft like a trampoline. I wouldn't have thought of it except the word trampoline came up. If you get a chance to see the movie Hail Mary, it'll be a fun movie. It approaches E.T. in a way. E.T. was, of course, mind-boggling. It had Drew Barrymore in it. That made it amazing. But I mean, E.T. was like, but Steven Spielberg did that movie, and he produced this one too, and it's really good. You know, it's at least got the friendly alien that everybody's going to love. Okay, just thought I would say that. Now I forgot where we were. You finished reading? No, you had to go to the next
Keep
page.
going. Yep.
We're starting here, all right?
Yep. The theory behind
Okay.
structures in summary.
Does anybody else want to read? Okay, Joe, nobody's jumping in.
I'm happy to do it. Theory behind geodesic structures summary. We can think of Fuller's task as a mathematical game confined to the rules of synergetics, in which the goal is to enclose as much volume as possible with the least amount of material. A solution must combine two geometric principles, integrating overall shape considerations with the requirements for local stability. Geometry tells us that the shape with the greatest volume surface area ratio is a sphere. Synergetics challenge that sphere to materialize. Since physics has found no continuum, we've had to clear up what we mean by a sphere. This game calls for a solution we can actually build and touch, which means the best structural approximation of that elusive sphere. We thus have redefined the problem in terms of operational mathematics. To get started, we might experiment with toothpicks, thus limiting the game to enclosures with identical struts. This brings us back to Fuller's 3' structural systems in universe. The inventory of self-stabilizing systems with equal vectors of 3 tetrahedron, octahedron, and icosahedron. The third has the most volume per toothpick, chapter 5. An icosahedron is thus the best we can do with toothpicks, but of course, it is not a satisfactory solution. How can the enclosure become more spherical and still be stable? The geometric logic continues. Through systematic symmetrical subdivision of our best approximation, taking full advantage of the stability of triangles, it hardly needs to be restated. If we have to structure, we have to have triangles. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Let's pause right there. Does everybody get that? It's amazing to me. I actually think I'm getting it, you know?
I'm getting part of it when she referenced chapter 5. That's for sure. That started to make sense to me. But
what's coming up for me is that he says that science hasn't come up with a way to structure a continuum. There's no way to structure a ball and have it be a structure. And so instead of using spheres, he's using straight lines. And so if you want a sphere, you just put more triangles to it, and then you get a bigger, more stable sphere. That's what I'm hearing him say. And we have what he called constructional mathematics. Is that what he called them?
It's operational,
Operational mathematics.
but
Yeah.
it's yeah. But that's an interesting point you just made, Steve. But I know Fred has his hand up.
Yeah, Fred, you can maybe explain what I just said better. Or
What he's saying is that there's physics has no continuums in nature, and then he goes on to it's this paragraph is an elaboration on his assertion that he got as a kid that there's no straight lines and that the line doesn't keep going, and so it's all the same psychosis he's pursuing at the same time here. And what? Yes.
I just want to make sure it's Amy that's writing this.
Yeah, but she's trying to explain Bucky.
Okay.
So
Okay. I just want to make sure.
yeah. So well, that's all fine. It's fine. He's on one hand, he's going towards explaining the whole universe. On the other hand, he says, "Oh, how do we build this thing?" It's a little bit the opposite of the spectrum in terms of thinking, but I'm sure we're all used to his way of apprehending things. If you want to build a sphere, the way it's done in industry for tanks and stuff like this is that you have a structure that approximates a sphere with triangles or whatever shapes it's convenient to build a sphere with metal. The way to shape metal, it's always easier to shape it flat and then cut it and then weld it to make a 3D structure. So what they do is they approximate a sphere with flat panels of metal welded. They fill this thing with water and they throw it some explosives in it. And the explosives make a sphere. No more triangles.
Yeah. Back in the 60s,
that's how they do it.
Yeah, back in the 60s, there was a big trend to build domes. And there was an ice skating rink in Provo, and I almost bought the thing and made it a dance hall. But because nobody knew what to do with it. But the way they built it was they basically put a big balloon there, and then they started bending steel bars, what I'm talking about, the reinforcement bars they put in cement. What are those things called?
Rebars.
The rebars. And they would bend these things, and then they built a structure around the ball, and then they put cement over it, and then they popped the balloon and took it out. That's how they built a dome. It was real nice. There were no triangles involved in that. But I don't think they were trying to do a geodesic dome either, and they didn't understand about that construction. And this is more of like a rectangular dome. It was more like a roller rink, like a hockey thing. It wasn't a sphere. It was a spherical oblong thing, more like an egg. Anyway, 2 cents.
More like a what? What did you just say?
An egg. More like an egg. They just got a giant chicken. They brought in a giant. No, it's okay.
Yeah. That was good.
I'm so sorry. Okay. If we're all complete and we can make it through my shortfalls, you want to continue to read?
Sure. In short, two simple principles taken together lead to a solution to the stated problem. Combine the advantages shape of the icosahedron.
Advantageous shape.
Yeah. Yep. Shape of the icosahedron. With the stability triangles and the geodesic dome almost materializes. The logic is as exquisite as it is simple, but we're missing a step. Was that advantageous up there or advantage?
It seemed to be advantageous to me. That's how I
Thank
read
you.
it.
Forgive me. That was bothering the hell out of me for a moment. Sorry.
Cool.
Yeah, kick on. All right. So now I can start reading again. Okay. And the geodesic dome almost materializes. The logic is as exquisite as it is simple, but we're missing a step. How can we develop the checkerboard tessellation illustrated above into a functional structure? the icosahedron edges can be divided into any number of segments. The greater the number of frequency, the more sphere-like the end result will be. Then to complete the transformation, each new vertex superimposed on icosahedron faces must be projected out to the surface of the imaginary sphere defined by the icosahedral vertices, and then interconnected by great circle chords, figure 15-4. The nature of this projection accounts
sorry.
for the slight variation in the shape and size of triangles. The farther away a chord is from an icosahedral vertex, the more it is stretched during the transformation from planar to spherical. Planar to spherical. Okay, I get that. And then
15 for transformation from planar to spherical.
from a
Follow
planar
the great
scale,
circle.
from a planar scale to spherical. I'm going to need help with this.
Okay.
Explaining this transformation.
Yeah, the further away a chord is, what was a chord?
It's from the icosahedral vertex. The more it is stretched during the transformation from planar to greater number of frequency.
Well, I think I get it. He's just using these great circles out here. And so you just extend these radius to the edge created by the great circle as it connects to each of the vertices of the thing, I think. Fred, what's your thought on that? Richard?
Well, I mean, one way for me to visualize from the straight edge triangle shape over to the curved one is each of those outside edges have to kind of stretch out to align with the curvature of the chord. And so when you do that, then you end up with, as they say in here, slight variations in the size of the triangles in order to fit into a curvature shape.
Okay. The way it's done here, if you can we go back to the drawing? Yeah, this one. The bottom one, the triangles, the apex at the center, the apex at the bottom is the center of the sphere.
Right.
And the chord,
Wow. Okay.
yes, okay. And the straight line on the left side at the top is the chord. The chord is the line that cuts a circle at 2 points. So the chord that passes through the center is the diameter, and all the others are special cases chords. So if this is a chord, that means the left on the top row, the left point and the right point are on the circle. The other three in the middle are not on the circle. The way to push them on the circle is to take the distance from the center to one of the points that's on the circle and use this distance to push the other 3 points by the same distance, making them on the circle. And if you do this for all the radii that you can imagine, that are going from the center of the sphere, not just in the plane, but in 3D all around. And if you push all these points with the same radii, then you then you have formed a sphere, approximated a sphere.
So the edge becomes the chord.
No, the edge is a chord.
The edge is the chord, and
Okay.
you extend the edge to match the radius.
I'm going to share my own. I'm going to share my screen so that I
Please
can
do
use
it.
my own pointer,
And
Please
if it's
do it.
okay. I'm going to use my mouse pointer. It will be easier. Can you see it?
Yes,
yes.
we can see the
Basically?
top
Okay.
half of the illustration. Now we see it all.
Okay. Mhm. Okay. First thing here, we're using this triangle here. Yes.
Yes.
And this is a left point, a right point, and 1, 2, 3 point in the middle, right here. Left
Yeah.
point, right point, 1, 2, 3 point in the middle, and this is the center of the triangle.
Oh.
This is the center of the sphere. That is, this is 2D. This is 2D, but at 90 degrees.
Right.
Okay, so if we imagine this here would be a triangle like this, and there will be a radius. I mean, something radiating from the center to every triangle. Can I edit this PDF like this?
I think I got it. The top
Hold on,
picture is
hold on.
the 2D
Yes,
of the surface, and the bottom is the 2D of the dissection of the sphere,
So where's
showing the center of the sphere.
where's the special case that you were referring to, Fred? Hmm.
okay. So this would be the triangle we see. It's really clunky to do that. Okay, this would be this triangle here. That here, this would be that. And this here is the center of the sphere. Yes?
Right.
Okay, so now if we want to approximate this better, to make a sphere, we need to round this. The way to do it is we take this length here, which is already on the sphere, and we push this point.
Hmm.
We push this.
It's as though we had a compass fixed at the center of the sphere. We just take the
yes, but you don't have a compass. The way it's constructed, you have to push this here. Okay.
Right.
And of course there's a 1 point here, 1 point here, 1 point here, another one here. There's all those points in the middle for this here.
Right.
All those points here are also pushed forward, which gives us this image here. I mean, this is the 2D, and after it's been pushed, it gives us this image.
right.
Okay, are we all good on that one?
I think I'm good.
I have
Okay.
another way of
Yes,
trying
but
to.
let's go a little bit further before we
Oh,
change,
okay.
we change topic. I'm not done. If we're good there, if you remember when we looked at where's this image now? When we look at this image here, we said that those triangles can be infinitely subdivided.
Yes.
Yes? Okay, so now if we take that face and we back to the other one, we back to here. So we do this once, and then we do it again. We take a small triangle here, and we substitute it for this one. We subdivide it in the middle, and then we push again, and again, and again, until we approximate a sphere as much as we possibly can. I'm done. Richard.
What is the
Yeah.
transformation representing, though? Let me ask you.
It's pushing outward. It's like blowing it up.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry, Richard.
As it
Well,
says, the last sentence there says, it is stretched during the transformation from planar to spherical.
right.
I'm sorry
Well,
for that, Richard. Go ahead.
Well, an image that came into my mind as we were discussing this was the construction of a teepee. And when you start with the three poles that represent the three upright triangles and the bottom triangle, which is also kind of a linear triangle. But then when you take and put four equal length poles, I think it's equal length poles, in between each of those three, you end up with 15 poles, and you in fact have pushed the straight line edge out into a circle. And so when you construct a TP with 15 poles, you end up with a circular base.
A spherical base.
Yeah,
circular base.
spherical
It's
base. Yeah, yes.
It's weird. I found a picture of that, Richard. I think I can show it here.
It was sort of like putting the center up into the sky, if you want. Just flip those two bottom triangles or figures to an upright position.
This is a picture of the teepee. They start with the three. First, they lay this down and tie this off here. Then they lift this baby up and they build a tetrahedron, basically. It's
Right.
slightly irregular tetrahedron. It's deeper on this backside, and this becomes the door over here. One of these faces becomes the front door. And then they put that pole in the back and make it a tripod or a tetrahedron. And then they simply take the other poles and they add them around and creating a spherical base.
Right.
But it starts off as an irregular tetrahedron. And they aren't all the same size.
Oh,
You can see they stick out on the top here. So they can, as long as they're long enough, you can make this as round as you want to make it based on how long you're supporting those poles are. But the first tetrahedron establishes the height of the TP, and the rest of the poles establish the roundness of it.
Right.
I built a few of these guys.
The difference between those two constructions is a direction in which you're pushing the chords to make a circle. On one way, you put it outwards from the center. On the other side, you put it also outward from the center, but not the same center.
Right.
Okay, I'm not going to wave my hand. You get the message.
Right on. Yeah.
Well, that's what happened to me when I saw what I would call the inverted triangle on the bottom of those graphics. And for some reason, the TP image came back to me, and if I flipped it up, then I could look at the three starting poles and then the four in between, which just pushed it out into a natural kind of sphere at the bottom.
It's very interesting because this is the underlying idea in calculus. Is you cut stuff smaller and smaller and smaller until you can say with a good enough approximation that the small stuff that you have, you can be is equivalent to a straight line. And then you can either go smaller and smaller. Once you have a straight line, you can calculate the slope of it and all that, and then you have the derivative. And then you can do it the other way around, which is you cut smaller and smaller and smaller, and then you know that when you aggregate all these small parts, then you can get the volume of the surface, and then you get the integral. So this notion of infinitesimals as I think Newton or Leibniz, I forgot, said it. That's the basis of calculus. Is you go as small as you can, approximate it with a straight line, and then we build it.
Joe has put a diagram up here. Let's see what has that ask.
I'm trying to
good.
figure out the connection because there's a connection there to what we're talking about. Fred's diagrams really helped me out a lot. And I'm still trying to figure out the connection between the diagrams and the spherical and understanding how this
Of
all
course, the TP is just built, assumes that there's a ground level. So this is not exactly relative to the TP. What
I'm thinking where the third pole is. Where is that?
if you're building a TP, you lay 2 poles down, cross them at the top, then you lift the 2 poles up and take the third pole and lay it on top of it and then stick it in the ground. And if you want to, then you go up to the top and you lash the 3 poles together. So basically you have a tripod, but the 2 in front are the door. They're kind of closer together. And then this back guy is kind of out there extended in an irregular fashion. And I'm not sure how it has anything to do with this drawing at all.
It does, but I just don't see it.
Yeah.
Not
Cool.
yet.
Are we ready? Do we want to continue to discuss this or we want to continue to read?
No, we can continue to read. I'll figure it out.
Okay, good. Okay. The resulting omni-triangulated polyhedron, and thank you very much for correcting that spelling, Richard. Fred, at the very beginning. That made a big difference for me because I was totally lost with the ORM thing. The resulting omni-triangulated polyhedron has 6 triangles at every vertex, except for for those located at the 12 vertices of the original icosahedron, which continue to join the 5 triangles. See 15.5. And there's a bunch of hexagons with a couple of pentagons. This is a 4V icosahedron transformation of figure 13 of 15.3. That's 15.3. And then by doing this process of extending the chords, by this process of extending chords, we end up with this puppy here. The system can be indefinitely many 6-valent nodes. The system can have indefinitely many 6-valent valent nodes, but the existence of exactly 12 5-valent vertices is a prerequisite to closure. Happily, there is also a considerable engineering advantage in having 5 or 6 struts leading out from each vertex. Forces are instantly distributed in many directions, omni-radially, Bucky might say, producing structures with unprecedented strength in relation to their weight. This is the basic strategy behind the geodesic dome. Comments or questions? Geodesic design in nature. Fuller points out that
I have something.
Please.
I put it. Can you share what I put in the chat?
Yes. Let me one new one. Here it comes. I'll download it. Just load it in. And of course, Fred, you can always do this. I'm glad to have the files for the record, but you can always.
Yeah, it just felt rude to to shut the book you were reading down without talking to me.
Really, I don't mind. I believe in democracy and I respect it. Okay, good. We're going to I'll just share my screen and then come over to where this guy was. Hang on. See, it would have been faster if you'd have just shared it. And then you could send me the file for the archive. And here we
If
go.
you click on it in the chat, it goes in your hard drive.
I know I downloaded it and gave it a name so that I'd be able to find it and have it make sense. And of course, this is my old computer, not my new computer. And there's Fred's file right there. Okay. Fred, do you want to talk about this?
I don't see it yet. There we go.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I saw on Joe's drawing that there was a square root of 2, square root of 5, square root of 3, and all that. When you take the vesica pieces, which is two circles that intersect at their own centers, you can construct
You should have your drawing again.
okay. You can construct constants from 1 to square root of 9 very easily following a circular pattern that goes through the center of all that. And as a bonus, you get phi and 1 minus phi.
Mm.
That's to enrich the diagram you put, because that's
Does very
you've got,
much so.
you've got two vesica pieces there, one on the left, one on the right. So you have all these constants centered around the center of each of them.
That makes it a lot more clear, especially the mathematics behind it.
Yes, yes.
You know,
And that's an original drawing. That's my research.
Oh, is it really? Wow.
Yeah,
Nice.
very nice. Now,
So,
go ahead.
well, I was saying, so you start with the square root of 9 and go all the way down around to square root of 1, and you get the circle edges of a new circle. Am I following that correct?
actually not. You build a vesica pieces, which is two circles, the two outer circles, the two large circles.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. So you do that
Okay.
first.
Yeah, you do that first, and then so each one has a radius of 1, and then in the middle you draw a smaller circle with a radius of 1/2.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then you look for the value of the constants, which is square root of 1, square root of 2, and square root of 3, 4, 5. Square root of 4, of course, is 2, and so on. And every time you have a square root of 5, if you look close enough, you will find 5 because it's a built-in square root of 5. So it's if you want to have once you have found square root of 5, if you want to have people say "ooh, wow" and clap you, you just find where the phi is, and they say, "Hey, look, phi is here too."
Oh my
And
goodness.
yes,
If
and
phi
so
is there too, it's got to be true.
I'm sorry.
If phi is there too, it's got to be true.
Yes, if you can demonstrate phi is in there, then everybody believes you.
That's right. Sorry, Richard, what were you going to say?
No, I'm complete. Fred's corrected in terms of the what now I recall exactly what he said. You take two big circles and overlap them, and then you get the inner circle, the smaller circle, and a radius, as you said, of 1, and then the other one's a radius of 1/2.
Yes, and if you think about it, vesica Pisces has been around for thousands of years. It's part of the tradition of what's called sacred geometry, but it's very rich. You can construct a pentagon out of it. You can construct a hexagon out of it. You can construct equilateral triangle, which is very visible from the two centers of the large circles and the square root of 3 points. That's a construction of a equilateral triangle. And from an equilateral triangle, you can, with a little bit of technique, you can subdivide plots of land equally. You take an irregular plot of land, you can subdivide it equally just with an equilateral triangle as a starting point. Therefore, that makes you the scribe of the landlord, because then you can solve all the problems that all the disputes that people have. Oh, his plot is bigger than mine, and all these things. You can do that. So there's no doubt. There's no doubt that this was a fascinating symbol and a fascinating starting point for many calculations and many discoveries in geometry in the very early on.
Oh, I just saw a woo-woo video this last week that talks about this shape right here. They turn this vertically. They take this axis here, turn it vertically, and this becomes the all-seeing eye.
Yes,
That's
And,
right.
and
yes, yes. And some people just burn some toast and see Jesus, so that's about the same.
that's right. If I was Egyptian, I'd see Ra, you know. So interesting. I wanted just a general comment. The whole idea about square roots, and I wish I understood it better, but the circumference of a circle is pi r squared. So there are these squares and these square roots. And I noticed that when I build a tesseract from a cube, I square the cube and it becomes a tesseract, a four-dimensional cube.
Yeah.
This squaring is magical. I hear people talk about orders of magnitude all the time. And
Yes.
it's interesting to me how I go from one dimension to another dimension, not with multiplication, not with just pure multiplication, but I have to use squares.
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
interesting to me that the squaring is the way to understand what's in front of me. Square roots and squares help me understand what's in front of me. It boggles my mind.
Yes. And it's a good approach, because most of today's geometry and mathematics is taught upside down. What I mean upside down is we start at the wrong end of it. Instead of starting from squares, we start with square roots.
Yeah,
And then we build a square out of it and say the square root square is a square, but that's not how it works. The way it works is that first you have a square,
yeah,
and you can basically do nearly everything. You can do it without going to square roots,
yeah.
especially at the time of Pythagoras, which
Right.
when Pythagoras was a little bit of an idealist, and all his followers, all his cult, because that was a cult, were idealists, and they had set out to destroy everything that was not integers. So when somebody came up with a proof that square root of 2 could not be reduced as an integer, and it was proven that it was an irrational number, they could not accept it. They killed the guy.
Yeah.
So
And Pythagoras is the guy
they
that,
decided that by making the guy disappear, the whole problem of irrational number would disappear, because it
just kill the
hurt
guy.
their thinking.
Talk about anti-Bohmian dialogue.
Right.
We don't want to hear about that.
Yeah. And what's interesting to me is that Pythagoras is the way to understand a triangle is you have to square it all. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And now I can measure a triangle.
Yeah, and you do it physically. You just build from each side of a triangle, you build a square.
Yeah.
It's fascinating because it's so intuitive when you learn it that way, when you look at it that way, compared to trigonometry, the way it's taught at school. I mean, this is ridiculous. Uh,
And in fact, imaginary numbers came out of the fact that people use squares to actually identify an imaginary number. If you have 50,
Actually, yes, the imaginary numbers came from a challenge between mathematicians in the
right.
15th, 16th century, something like that,
Genesis.
where they challenge each other to have a formula to solve third degree polynomials, that is
Yeah.
cube polynomials. And nobody could do that except somebody said, I can do it. And then he had to do it. And then he could not figure it out because for some polynomial, he had to calculate square root of negative numbers. And so at some point, somebody had to invent that the square root of -1 was I, something imaginary. And that's how imaginary numbers were born, by challenging mathematicians.
Vertasium has a great video on where imaginary numbers came from and how they used the way they would keep their job is they would say, here's a problem, solve it. And if nobody could solve it, but them, they kept their job. And then every once in a while, somebody would come up and solve it. In fact, it's a great video. I'll find the Vertasium video and I'm going to try to post it out here as we read today because it goes back and shows how squares are the way they solve the problem.
Yeah.
And they said if you draw a square around this whole thing and you don't have enough squares to fill this square, there's your imaginary number. I mean, that's my colloquial way of saying it. So I'll look for potassium imaginary numbers and I'll put it out there. Okay. Any other conversation about this?
No, but I'm very appreciative of it.
Cool. And we started at 9, so we're in good shape for a little time. All right, dynamite. Let's go back to, if we're ready, Joe, you can be reading again. I'll do what I can to bring that book back into view. There you go.
Geodesic Design Nature. Fuller points out that an extremely high frequency geodesic dome polyhedron provides the true model of physical systems, which we interpret as spheres. As for example, a soap bubble, the notion of continuous surface equidistant from a central point is scientifically unacceptable, that is, inconsistent with physical reality. On some level of resolution of all spheres consistent with discrete quanta, untold numbers of energy events interconnected by an even greater number of vector relationships or forces. He has clarified this particular misconception countless times. That's interesting right there. 535.11, because spherical sensations are produced by polyhedral arrays of interferences identified as points approximately equidistant from a point at an approximate center. And because the mass attractive or repulsive relationships of all points with all others are most economically shown by chords and not arcs, a spherical array of points produces very high frequency omnitriangulated geodesic structures. Our eyes cannot see individual molecules in the delicate transparent soap bubble, nor can we detect the choroidal chemical attractions between molecules. Nevertheless, they exist, explains Fuller, and it is our responsibility to understand and teach the truth about universe. Once again, his goal is to provide tangible models of otherwise invisible phenomena. Of all possible solutions, a high-frequency triangulated shell with icosahedral symmetry provides the most efficient method of enclosing space with a minimum of material and effort. Accordingly, nature relies on this elegant design in many situations, calling for protective enclosures regardless of the scale. Oh, that gets to what we were just talking about a moment ago. The examples include the small sea creatures of Lara. Anybody want to help me on that?
Sounds good.
Radiolaria.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Radiolaria.
Radiolaria. The fibrous web of the eye cornea, and the protein shell of many viruses. We looked into the structure of spherical viruses in Chapter 8 and can now go into greater detail based on our increased familiarity with geodesic theory. The design problem is familiar by now. Tiny amounts of genetic material must be protected by a tough protein shell, as nature is scrupulously effective. The choice is clear. A spherical distribution of protein molecules will satisfy the basic criteria in terms of conserving material relative to volume, while icosahedral symmetry will provide the most even distribution. The natural balance sought by chemical forces leads to approximately equivalent spans, which is geometrically accomplished by high-frequency icosahedral systems. In short, the structure of viruses is a product of nature's eternal tendency towards equilibrium. Geometry imposes the rules. Reassuringly, observations with the electron microscope of isometric virus shells have consistently revealed icosahedral designs. Dr. Aaron King, who first observed the geodesic structuring of viruses, wrote to Fuller in 1962, telling him of this discovery. Bucky, delighted by the news, immediately wrote back with the formula for the number of nodes on a shell, 10f squared plus 2, varying according to frequency, as confirmation of Klug's hypothesis. Klug answered that the values obtained from this equation proved consistent with the virus research, and thereby provided Fuller with one of his most valued anecdotes, a prime example of nature's economic elegance, which enriched many lectures in subsequent years. Insufficient awareness of spatial constraints causes these structural similarities to be perceived as coincidence, as geodesic domes. Yeah, keep.
Okay. There we go. Sorry.
That's okay. I mean, we can probably stop at the end of this paragraph because there's a lot to go over. Were utilized worldwide 15 years before electron microscopy. I can't see whatever that what you have written there. There you go. Enabled detection of virus capsids in 1962. The resemblance of the tiny biological forms to large architectural structures seemed to many quite extraordinary and impossible. Since science does not, as a rule, take into consideration the active role of space, however, such awareness can assist the prediction of unknown structures based on their functional demands.
Cool. Let's pause there because it talks about another fascinating example. So any comments or questions at this point?
There's I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Help.
Yeah. There you go. That's my takeaway.
Yeah. Everybody's in the same boat with you, Lee.
Yeah, because there is this. I'm trying to understand what is being said about the pattern in nature and this Dr. Flug. And there's a lot there, and I'm trying to think at how that relates back to his other.
I think we need to go into a dictionary and just read about what each thing that she's talking about. Because, man, she used a lot of terms and associated with animals to organs to viruses to what is a capsid? You know,
A capsid is like a capsule.
a what?
A capsule? A box?
A capsule. Oh,
Yeah. But for virus, they call it a capsid. For
okay.
virus, they call it a capsid because it's made of amino acids. It's proteins.
Okay.
That's why they call it. So it's just the outer shell of the virus, the container.
Okay.
I think that basically what she's doing here is just trying to be right about how right Bucky was. She's trying to give all these examples of saying, you know, there's no coincidence. This geodesic structure is in nature everywhere. And she rattles off a bunch of stuff to prove it.
Yeah. Well, what's going on here is that in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, probably more in the 50s, 60s, all these things, all this was new. The tools to observe the micro, like electron microscope, all the advances in the material science, structures of at the molecular level, structure at the atomic level, um, all these things were new, and all these patterns from the macro to the micro were being linked. Oh, look, over there in the universe, we see that. Oh, over there in the microverse, we see that. And maybe that's the same, and we have the same shape and all these things. So it was the golden age for the amazement of the pattern discoverer, because you could draw parallels all over the scales of the universe and all across science capsids, containers, because of specialization. Everybody was working on their own topics, had their own patterns, and did not talk to the others. But with that, the multiplication of communications between people and all that, it's especially after the war, it started to appear that there was a lot of common patterns at different scales and a lot of common patterns in different domains of research. So we all used to that now. I mean, nobody's amazed that that viruses have the same shape as geodesic domes. Everybody knows it. But at that time, that was really amazing.
Same with DNA.
Yeah, the DNA appeared, and then a few years back, there was six carbon structure in a pentagon, in a hexagon, that was discovered. Yeah, it was all amazing. All these things we didn't know about that, because all these structures were something new compared to classical science from the Greeks and Romans and all these things, which basically the Renaissance had built upon, but very few new things had came out. There's some new things came out, but mostly it was a rehash and an elaboration upon what we knew already 2,000 years ago. But as we moved in time towards nowadays, a lot of brand new things appeared, and it was amazing to everybody. Richard Hamden.
And to continue with that, the Lee, Bucky took all these structural things with all those edges and these vertices, and he predicted a Bucky ball. He predicted there would be this unit that would be the maximum
Carbon
structure.
carbon 60. So
Carbon 60. He
60.
predicted it, and then suddenly they found one, and then they had
Yeah,
to
I
they
think
had
they
to
even built one.
yeah, they built one.
They
And
built
so
it. Yeah.
they had to name it after Bucky, so they called it the Fullerene because he had predicted it. And so there was this, like Fred says, there was all this, oh my gosh. And like Joe said earlier, as above, so below. Look, it's up there. Look, it's down here. Hey, it's everywhere. And all the sacred geometry guys are going, yeah, we already knew
All right.
that.
Yeah. Now that you say it.
Right, right. Richard, thanks for your patience. Go ahead.
Well, I'm not going to start where I was going to start at because I guess I'm curious as to whether Bucky actually predicted carbon 60. Um, and and it goes back to the assumption that there was only two forms of carbon, um, and graphite and diamond. And the assumption is that there is no other form of carbon. And it was when these three scientists were struggling with what they were going after, and they thought that they could construct this structure with a pattern of hexagons, and they couldn't get the hexagons to curl until somebody remembered that the image they had of the geodesic dome in Montreal was not a total pattern of hexagons. It was a mixture of hexagons and pentagons. And when they put those together after midnight one night, one of them, all of a sudden it curled, and it curled into the shape that we now know is the shape of a soccer ball. And when they came to name it, the convention, as I understand it, is that the discoverers cannot name, or whatever the discovery is cannot be named by the discoverers, named in honor of the discoverers. And so they knew that. And so then it was like, well, what are we going to call it? And they had to call it a Fullerene of some kind. And so they tried football arena, they tried soccer arena, they tried a whole bunch of things. And then one of them sort of said, well, why don't we call it a Fullerene? And then eventually they gave it the full name, Buckminster Fullerene. And then the short version, of course, is the buckyball. That was my understanding of how it unfolded. And the other connection is with the discovery of DNA. And it was my understanding that for some reason, Watson and those folks had a vision, if you want, or an intuition that what they were looking for was going to look like one of the things they'd seen in Fuller's writings, which were virus-like structures. And so they thought, we're going to find something like that. And so the competition between them and people like Linus Pauling, who was going after the same thing, and Pauling had already got a Nobel Prize in chemistry for something that these guys thought he fluked. And so they figured that he might fluke again. Only the advantage that they had is that, like building a jigsaw puzzle, they had a picture of the picture and all the pieces in the puzzle box. And so they did what all of us do in putting a puzzle together. We look at the picture, we look for pieces that might sort of correspond with some part of the picture, and we build it. But if you're trying to put a jigsaw puzzle together with no picture, you're at a great disadvantage over those that are trying to do the same thing with the picture. And so that's apparently how they came about with their discovery of DNA and beat Pauling, um, Linus Pauling at the same exercise. But what I was wanting to say earlier was I was going back to the sentence that said, once again, his goal is to provide tangible models of otherwise invisible phenomena. And going back to the early Greek days that you were talking about, Fred, it seemed like we started off with the assumption that everything is visible or solid. And as the search for the basic building block continued over the centuries, and eventually we got to the point where it continues to be elusive. And the conclusion for a lot of the searchers was that uh, once we get close to it, everything turns into a pattern of relationships. And the pattern of relationships are invisible patterns. Um, so it made me think that there's an issue here in terms of if we think everything is solid or a thing, then we try and find models that will um, be tangible representations of a thing. Fuller's saying, no, we want to find models that are tangible models or representations of what's mostly invisible. Um, and so, again, there are approximations of the invisible, since we put them into a tangible kind of model. So similar to the whole idea that a map is not the territory. The model is not the entire invisibility. But it really is, in my mind, having us focus on the importance of the invisibility over the importance of the solidarity. Um, and we're always trying to understand the invisible. That little piece that Fred was saying earlier in calculus is still a bit of a mystery. It's as close as possible as we can get, but we still haven't got right to the absolute. And that to me is a huge, big difference in terms of how we think about if you want, the compression and tension of tensegrity. Um, Instead of starting with the modeling of the visible, we're actually working on the modeling of the invisible. And we respect the invisibility, which to me is another approximation of respecting the mystery of the universe. And the mystery of the universe is such that we'll never have an absolute finite understanding of universe. There'll always be a mystery element there. And for some, the mystery element has been turned into a tangible notion of a God, and that we personify God rather than recognizing God might be more of a pattern of relationships and not an actual thing. But because we're so used to having to have a representation of something that's a thing, something that we can see, that we turn invisibles into things, into seeables. Anyway, I've kind of wandering around on this, but that sentence triggered off something for me about tangible models of the invisible.
You're muted, Steve.
The more I experience life, the more I realize that really everything is the way my brain works. I don't see reality anyway. And so the best I can do is muster up a metaphor and a visualization of something. So these things are helpful in understanding my relationship to them, maybe, and maybe they're indicative by comparison. They help compare things, there's certain aspects of things, but it's not truth. Fred put a comment there about benzene. And I did a quick search on what is the similarities of fullerene and benzene, and they share a close relationship primarily characterized by their shared aromatic nature interaction as solvent solute and roles in the synthesis of carbon materials. While benzene is a planar six-carbon ring, fullerene, six-carbon ring, a fullerene is a closed 60-carbon cage with icosahedral symmetry. So there are all these like metaphorical relationships, and our brains love pictures like that. Yeah, go ahead, Fred.
To me, benzene is more important than fullerene because this was the first discovery of cyclical carbon.
You're
The other
just
one,
saying that to
the,
piss us off, aren't you? No.
the other one flows from it. That's for me, benzene is a more notable event.
Good. And you didn't hear what I said. Hopefully you didn't hear what I said. I was cracking a joke about how you were just trying to frustrate us Bucky Fuller guys that what do you mean a fullerene's not as practical as a benzene molecule? What? It's three-dimensional and it has 60 things instead of 6 or 12. No, I'm only kidding. No, I get that. Thank you. Thank you. I can
I
comment.
think I think I'm essential to this course to bring a little bit of
Agreed.
rationality from the high-flying, incomprehensible vocabulary of Bucky.
Mhm. And you can call it rational if you want to. Okay, go ahead, Richard. Go ahead, Richard.
No, I'm complete. It's just that that particular sentence really triggered something for me in terms of the effort to visualize or tangibilize the invisible, um, and our penchant for wanting to turn everything into a thing. And so, in the spirit of tensegrity, we try and take relationships and make them into a thing rather than work with the dynamics of compression and tension. And I think for me, I think that's the kind of thing that Anne is really trying to get across to her parents. This whole idea of the dynamics of tensegrity in terms of things and relationships. Um, and even as I think I heard you say earlier, Anne, that one of the things is to try and convince parents that they don't achieve what they had desired through their own children. Um, and and if we can get people thinking that the relationship I have with somebody else allows them to manifest their own sort of accomplishments, and I can sort of live off of that, but it's not my goal manifested through my children. It's the relationship I have with my children manifesting their own contribution to a better world. Um, and I think that's what is such a struggle in our human relationships, that we're always trying to get somebody else maybe to do what we weren't able to do. We're trying to turn relationships into things rather than the dynamic of both, and allowing each of us to manifest whatever it is we're going to contribute in a given moment or a given sort of span of life. So I'm complete.
Thank you, Richard.
We're approaching the end of our evening, but I wanted to point out that, and for Lee here, and just as a reminder for myself, because as we've been discussing about this, and Richard, as you mentioned, them having a picture in advance, the thing that really boggles my mind here is, and none of these drawings are to scale. That's one thing that I'm convinced with. But one of the fun things for me to do is to look at all these and see all the hexagons that I see, but then notice when I see a pentagon.
Mm-hmm.
This is not to scale, but really the only pentagons I see is there's one right here. And there's
if
one,
you move outwards
yeah.
from the center of your pentagon, put your okay there. Now you move to the boundary of it. Oh, no. The first
Oh,
pentagon
of the
boundary.
first
Okay.
pentagon?
Now, okay, that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if you move away from the center, one more boundary. There we go. Now you've got another pentagon. Can you see it?
That's a hexagon right there.
No. Keep going. 1, 2, 3. No. Not the center. The center stays the same.
Oh, like here's a pentagon over. No,
No,
that's a
not this one.
hexagon.
Not this one. You say you can only see one, but okay. Move to the
Why don't
boundary.
hey, Fred, why don't you share your screen and then you point to
Okay.
it? 'Cause I'm missing the
Okay.
point by a long
Okay.
shot.
I thought
And that'll be our last thing, and we'll
it
go
would
into
be
our takeaways here. I'm going to stop sharing.
continue. This. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can see. It frustrates me how these drawings are not to scale, or at least I'm not understanding them at any.
Okay. Can you see my mouse on the center of the pentagon?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So the pentagon can go around it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Right on.
Now I move out 1.
Yep.
Yes. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, you're doing,
4.
yeah, you're doing
Right.
big pentagons.
Okay, that's what I wanted to show you because you say I can only see one. I wanted to show you that more.
Hmm.
But I was looking for another one with the same sized edge.
Oh, you found it. You've got one here. You've got another one there, and you've got another one here somewhere.
Yeah, it's very hard for me to see those around there, but there you go.
Yes.
Yeah, and I love the idea that thanks for bending my brain, Fred, and showing me that all I got to do is go bigger
Yes.
instead of staying on the same. That's very cool.
Yes, and and as we said, we can subdivide all of these equilateral triangles as small as we can until we reach blank scale. Then, of course, you increase the number of pentagons and the number of hexagons accordingly.
Right on. Okay, good. Wow. Jojo.
And that was my takeaway. So
That was your take. Well, restate your takeaway, Fred. Stop sharing your screen so we can see everybody and restate your takeaway and then pass it along. Thank you.
my takeaway is that if you see one, there's more.
Okay, good.
So, Richard, how are you feeling? What's your shape and what's your takeaway?
Well, I'm beginning to feel more and more spherical. And again, my biggest takeaway is I think it goes back to something Fuller said a long time ago about the emergence of the invisibilities, the patterns or relationships, and how important it was to pay more and more attention to what it is that we can't see. And so that's my takeaway. That one sentence really kind of struck me in the sense of things that are invisible. We try and find models, tangible models, to help us understand those invisible sort of connections or mysteries in our otherwise visible world. And it's what triggered me years ago with students when in my field we had a domain phrase called person, interaction, and environment. And we had a discipline that tried to say it was different, in quotes, better than other disciplines because it focused on relationships between, the interactions between, and not to one side or the other. And when I started to get a better understanding of Fuller and eventually even Boehm, I realized that that assumption was nothing more than rhetoric, and that most people could not understand what this person interaction thing was all about. And when I learned about tensegrity and the relationship and the invisibility of relationships in human uh, relationships, uh, then I was basically saying to students, you have to spend a lot of years here at the university to learn how to see what you can't see and keep your eye on the relationship and not have it slide off to one side or the other, and then exercise your biases either towards the thing that you can see versus one that you another thing you can see which you don't like as well as the one on the other end of the continuum. And to learn how to train your eye to see the invisible and stay focused on it is really a challenging exercise for any of us to do. And so that's my takeaway. It's just a reinforcement of how important it is to learn how to, in a sense, see what you can't see. uh, so, Anne, how are you feeling? What's your takeaway?
Thank you, Richard. Yes, I definitely got a lot out of this today. Although I was quite quiet about it, but I was looking at sharing at the end. Yeah. One is that you were spot on, Richard, when you talked about the parents. Yeah, they in many ways the kids are kind of imprisoned by the parents. What they know from the past, and the parents want to replicate those, or as you said it, they want the kids to achieve what they couldn't, or they felt was the right thing to achieve, right? What came out as well is that the children have to do what is exponential, and their learning has to be exponential. That was what after you spoke about it, I kind of thought about it. But learning is linear, teaching is linear right now. And then it also gave me the context to explain what we're trying to do here, because when we did esports, for instance, parents just don't get it, right? They don't get it too. In Malaysia, gaming is just bad. Teachers will never do it in school, neither will principals, and parents will not support it. But then the esports generated so much for the today, right? From crypto to meta to blockchain and all that. Of course, there are all the things that are not right as well. But you know what? When the web came out, nobody expected the dark web either, right? But my point is, the kids, when they're doing the esports, they're literally learning exponentially, and that actually from just the things you said just now, it got me there, and today's discussions, right? Fred, your image here, that one the Pentagon, right? The Pentagon, and it went up to that bigger Pentagon. That's exactly what this is. What y'all just did for me, because I had difficulty. I was going in to explain to the kids already, to show them with AI coming in, there are a couple of skills that you cannot run away from. You need to get better at the computer part. You need to get better at the digital part, right? You need to get better at the business side. You got to get better at the environment side. And then the other one is the human side, which is the social side. So the arts, which means that you have to know how to understand the human beings in order to know how to market to them. Marketing means to persuade them, whether it's your cause, purpose, or whatever. So, but what you just did has given me the largest context ever, which is the exponential learning. They have to learn exponentially. Right now, the whole entire education system is so linear, it's not funny, So yeah, that is the big thing that I got. And then Richard, you talked about purpose, Bucky's purpose, which is to make tangible what is invisible, and make the tangible models for what is invisible. So all these are basically part and parcel of this exponential thing, because when you understand the basics of like I saw what we talked about. Fred, you shared that diagram there, that the two circles with another circle in the middle. Wow! Imagine if the kids knew that from an earlier age, you know. And then
And
the
it's
TP,
and it's easy to teach them.
yeah, and the TP. Oh my God! You
Yeah.
know, I would have loved that in my math class. You know, so it's things like this. So it's just completely the big issue for us right now is to find teachers who can do this, and none. Not in Asia, we can't. But I can find people who know the information. But then when we train them, and to keep them are two different things. So perpetually we are looking for people that we can train to get to this. And you know, you don't expect people to stay their entire lives with us, right? So after 5, 6 years, they've gotten to this level of expertise, and then off they go somewhere else. You know, it's one of those things that. But anyway, if I start talking more like this, I know I'm going to get more people who will come on board, who will stay with us like that. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anne. If you want them to stay, you have to marry them.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, make them partners. Okay, can this is like marriage.
That's
Okay.
right.
Yeah. So, Joe, how do you feel? And what shape are you in? And what is your takeaway today?
I have quite a few different takeaways. I'm kind of just exploring here a little bit with what everybody is actually saying and sharing. Um, you know, regarding the initial connections that we were making with the diagrams that Fred had placed into the chat. And I guess that's not the initial diagrams, but the subsequent diagrams where I was trying to make some connections earlier on. And I think that actually really, really helped me out quite a bit. Just learning a little bit more about the spiral of Theodorus by looking up some of the things that Fred was looking into. I think if you look at those links, that you still really start to understand fractal and patterns and things along those lines, and how things work as far as I'm thinking in terms of loops. And when I think in terms of loops, I start to think about how systems refer back to themselves. And I think of my friend, everybody knows CJ, that passed. He wrote a whole essay on the idea of measurement, and how all measurement is judgment. And basically, it's the relationship between the person doing the measuring and what is being measured. And when you look at it from that perspective, that it is about relationships. From that, you start to look at what it is, the connections between things, in the sense that each person that's doing the measuring is changing changing what is it's basically changing the relationship between the 2 points. And what does that mean? All of this means, it means that that there is an invisible, as Richard was saying, that we're looking back at how 2 points relate to one another, and then the mathematics that we're using in order to kind of come to that conclusion. And that's what these spirals and these circles and kind of understanding the relationships between 2 points is all about for me. Is that there's a limited amount of understanding that we have, and the more that we can communicate with each other about how we're measuring things and looking at things from differing perspectives, enables us to have a better understanding of the nature of reality itself. So the one thing I'm sure about is that I know that I don't know. So from that perspective. So I've been very much into self-referential systems. So a lot of this discussion, I've been looking at it through that lens. And that's why, a little bit abstract, my takeaway is a little bit abstract, but it's very, very, very beneficial for me, specifically after Fred put his diagram into the chat with, again, looking at the spiral of Theodorus, which I was not quite as familiar with. It has been a very long time since I've seen it. So I'm very appreciative of that. Steve, how are you feeling? What do you take away from today?
Okay, let's do Lee.
Oh, Lee, forgive me. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Lee. I'm
And I'll
Lee.
mute, by the way.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you
yeah.
go for it.
Very, very sorry about that.
I am thinking of something totally different from what all of you read today, but to me, it is important because of the association with the human and what a human can do if he realizes he can do it. An example being, my father was a pilot for United Airlines. He even flew in World War II. He flew as a young boy and amazed all of the pilots in World War II. But when he was flying a 747 into Chicago, and most of you don't realize, but Chicago has high buildings. And when you fly, you're flying between steeples of lots of buildings, and you got to fly between them. My father had a urinary infection that exploded in his body as he landed and collapsed. The co-pilot had to brake because my father had collapsed. And what happened was that he had gaseous gangrene throughout his abdomen. All of his muscles were taken out, and not in Chicago. They had to fly him to Texas. And it was a fight between United Airlines and the military to get him down there the fastest, or he would die. Anyone know about gaseous gangrene? It can kill you instantly. My father was awake. He knew what the doctors were talking about. They put him in a decompression chamber. They butterflied him from the neck down and then from bottom to back, or front to back, front and back, and then up above, straight across to his back, and took every bit of the gaseous gangrene and used oxygen to kill it. Well, that left him unable to ever fly again. He would never be able to walk ever again. Never be able to drive his favorite car, which is a TR4. He could never drive. He was even having difficulty talking. But he became determined that he was not going to follow what the doctors all said would happen to him. He tightened up every single muscle from the starting with the top of the head. He would tighten all the muscles up and then release them. And he would do that several times. He counted all the way up to 50 times in each section of the body, including his nose. He couldn't move his arms, so he had to do it, squeeze his nose as best as he could to get all of his muscles and body back in tune. And this is before anyone knew anything about yoga in the country. It was long ago. And he about killed himself. He said, "Nurse, I am going to walk down the hall." The nurse was shocked. "No, you're not. You can't even climb. You can't walk. You can't even move your feet. You can't do it." Well, hell with her. He walked down the hall and then came back and about died when he sat down. And he said, "See, I can do it." He went back to driving, walking, playing with all of his kids, 5 of us. He started fighting United Airlines to allow him flying, and he flew for 25 more years until he was way past the age of 70. So what I could hear from all of you in your discussions was that we need to learn about what has been said in the past and associate it to ourselves. We have triangles everywhere. We have circles everywhere. We have squares everywhere. Start associating with your math. I'm really excited about knowing math. I have got an ex-husband that is a mathematician that can think in his head and solve a problem. My youngest son can do the same, and he is super intelligent. But will he let me talk to him? Darn him. I have to get to him at your level, Fred, and your level, Steve, Richard, Joe, and even your level. Our levels are about equal. I think you're much better than I am at. And learn what we can do for humanity, for our fellow neighbor, even using math. I believe that my father healed himself with math. Every part of his body was a triangle, a square, a circle, a tetrahedron. Every part of his body was math, and he solved it. That's my takeaway. Thank you. Steve, how about you?
Okay. All right. Well, I'm grateful for everybody sharing tonight and grateful for everybody's contribution, for your reading, for the diagrams you put in the post. Here's what my big thing here. I'm first of all, I'm really grateful for Fred putting in that typo omni triangulation, which appeared later on in the book. But without that, Fred, I would have thought the first paragraph had nothing to do with the next paragraph. So, and I think that, Bucky should have hyphenated some of these words to make some sense out of them. But so I'm really grateful, Fred, for you doing that. I put the Vertasium history of imaginary numbers in the thing, and I think it'd be really important because all of us have talked about being captured by our past. In a religious context, there's this idea of the traditions of the fathers hold back the children. And in the book, The Four Agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz talks about domestication, that basically we all become tribal. And we get so tribal, we don't look outside of our tribe. And we don't look outside of those tribal values, and we don't look outside of the tribal paradigm. So, this idea of I need to look at what I can't see. Wow, that is so important. I need to look at what I'm not seeing. When I look at a tree, the thing that keeps the tree alive is something I can't see. I don't see all of a tree. So I got to look at what I can't see. This brings us to the concept of convex and concave. For every concave thing, there's a convex thing. For every convex thing, there's a concave thing. And this brings us back to numbers and imaginary numbers. And that video that I put in the thing is so cool because it shows how even back in the 1500s and 1600s, and I think it goes through like a 300-year history of how mathematicians jealously hung on to and did not share. There's one mathematician, when it came to imaginary numbers, solved the problem, and somebody bugged him and said, look, I promise you, although the blood oath, I will not tell anybody how you solve this problem. Just let me see how you solve the problem. And they all died, and the how to solve the problem was lost. But then somebody talked to his nephew, and just before he died, the guy told a nephew something about it, and then that was recovered, and suddenly everybody it just started a whole boom. There's been this idea for control, this idea of the fear of something that's not our tradition, this idea of fear of anything that's not part of our domestication. The idea that the establishment has a grip on everything, and we got to break the chains. And this Vertasium thing is really cool, showing how greedy people were back in the 1700s. I mean, I like to look at today, and I have all these conspiracy things about what's going on today and how money's trying to control this and that. It's not so much about money; it's just about greed and pride and human beings wanting to stay in their little tribe and keep control. So take a look at that Vertasium history thing. I think it's really cool. All right, you guys, I loved everything we did tonight. We've gone a little bit over, and I acknowledge that and promise I'll do better next time. We'll see you all soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.